And of course, it's like everything wants to be slow today. So we are just going to jump right in. Hello and welcome, Just a Family. This is giving you something to talk about, or Just a Live TV, as I like to call it. I'm your host, Melissa Krechler. I'm an identity coach, spiritual teacher, business mentor, creator of Just a Live TV, as well as the Women Supporting Women Can Network, which is coming soon. Today's episode, we are going to be talking about your ideal partner. And our sponsor today is none other than a Phoenix Identity. They actually have two offers for you today. They are offering you my book. So they're offering you my book, which is On My Way to Us. It's all about my past journey into going through my past relationships and identifying what I needed to learn in order to create space for love. And that will guide me to the next thing that they're offering is Creating Space for Love. That is a course that launches June 1st, 2022. Going through my past relationships. And always with it always kicks in. And that will that course again launches June 1st, 2022, and it is a course all about how to create a space for love, open yourself to your ideal partner, all starting with you. So if you're sick and tired of all of your past relationships holding you back from creating a good one, that's the course to take. And you get a discount offer with that, a coupon code, your ideal partner. If you type that in, you get it at 62% off. So go and check that out, link in the description. And to co-host my episode today is Laura Medrano, who also has a book about relationships, and that is also in the description. So go and take a look at that. Hers is on Amazon. And Laura, please introduce yourself.
Hello, thank you so much for having me today. I'm a relationship coach and an author, and I never envisioned myself to become that. Like, I didn't have the lifelong plan of even remotely being close to an expert on relationships. But what had happened is that I found myself in so much struggle with my own personal journey, my own relationships. And I found solutions and methods on how to help myself. And in doing so, I realized, wait a minute, I think I might have something to help other people, because no doubt in my mind, there was going to be other people struggling with the same mission that I was on. And it was to find a healthy relationship. And fast forward into present time, I ended up writing a book about attracting your soulmate, because it's the exact steps that I took. And I just feel called to share it with the world. So here I am. Go ahead.
No, and you can continue. Absolutely. I kind of jump in there and slightly cut you off.
That's okay. Here I am in current time as a self-published author. And I just feel that people need this help. Like, people need help in all relationships. It's not just in their love life, but just, with coworkers, with parents, with kids, with everything. But this love relationship has just been my niche, because I struggled with it my entire life. And the way I look at it is I was the common denominator on doing something wrong. Like, I had to take a hard look in the mirror and be like, wait a minute. All these failed relationships, but I'm the reason why. I'm the culprit. So what can I do to shift that whole mindset, that whole perspective that I was on? And I love Dr. Phil's motto when he says, well, how's that working for you? Because it wasn't working. So here we are.
And that's why you and I chose to do this episode. Sorry for the noise. There's a loud car that's about to go past my window, and I forgot to shut my window, so I apologize. And that's why you and I chose to do this episode, is because you and I have both written similar stories, not the same, but similar stories about how we used our own sense of identity, our own accountability, our own lessons to create something beautiful, to create something better. My book is all about, how I took those past relationships, and I learned from each of them. Each of them had a different lesson that I needed to learn on how I needed to be a good partner, how I needed to feel a certain way from my partner, and how the relationship dynamic really works. And I know for myself, I just celebrated 13 years of marriage with my husband. We've been together for almost 15. And it's fantastic, right? I don't do the things that I used to do. I don't call in that same energy, or, I created space for a love that worked for me. And that's exactly what you and I did. So one of the things I love to highlight about relationships, because again, like you, I do relationship coaching in a sphere, right? One of the things that I like to highlight is there's 3 parts to every relationship. There's me, there's my partner, and then there's the relationship itself. And a relationship is like a joint banking account, right? You each have individual accounts, but each of you have to put into that account in order to pay the bills, right? It's the same thing. Each of you are putting something different into that relationship that you need to be taking out what you need. You're putting in what you need. You're putting in a little bit of what your partner needs. You're putting a little bit of what the actual relationship needs, which is communication and trust and all of that. But then you're also taking out what you need. And that's the huge concept that a lot of people don't understand, is that they have to hold themselves accountable for their roles. So what do you find is the biggest struggle when people are trying to create their ideal partner?
Well, I'm a straight shooter, so I like to get straight to the bullet points and the facts, because I don't like to sugarcoat. And one of them is victim mindset does not work at all. So when woe is me and oh, poor me, I'm always attracting these toxic men or unhealthy relationships or, drug addicts. I mean, we can go extreme there. But you have to realize the reason behind that, of why you're attracting that. And so the victim mindset doesn't really work for me. I'm all about throwing a tantrum for 10 minutes and then putting on your big girl panties and getting straight to work. So, because we can sit there and cry all day, but is that really going to change anything? So I like to be just very proactive and sharing that with my clients and anybody who's craving change, that the victim mindset is the old programming. It's something that we need to shift out of.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. I might not word it the same way, but I totally agree that it is. We need to take accountability. A lot of people who are, we did an episode Friday called Addicted to Abuse, right? We get addicted to these patterns. We get addicted to a way of feeling, a way of living, right? Where that becomes our sense of norm. And for a lot of people, they don't realize that it is a victim mentality. They don't realize that it's their identity saying, I don't feel worthy. I don't believe that I'm worthy. I don't believe that I'm good enough to be happy. I don't believe that I'm worthy of unconditional love, or whatever it is that you don't feel worthy of. That shows up in the people we attract, is whether or not we feel worthy, whether we have boundaries, whether we are strong enough to say no, and strong enough to say that is a boundary I will not cross, and keeping strength in that. That's powerful. That's confident. It's your ability to create your own space.
Mm-hmm. And I think we're so programmed to habits, whether they're good for us or bad for us, that we're just used to it. You know what you're going to get. There's no fear in the unknown. So we just get used to a certain type of way, and it may not be beneficial for us in the long run. And so it's about reprogramming your thoughts. And I believe so wholeheartedly, like that is the first and foremost piece of the pie that is just so important, is like it all stems from the way you think about what you think about and how you think about it, because not all thoughts are necessarily true, or do they serve you? So you always have to think like, is this sabotaging my situation, or is this benefiting and serving my situation. So one of my little pieces of the pie is definitely all starting with your thoughts.
Yeah. No, for sure. That's the key to everything, right? Is our beliefs. What do we believe? What do we deserve? What do we what are we capable of? I was going to mention something and it just totally, I lost that trend. Oh, the fear, right? You were talking about the fear of the unknown and the fear of, just staying in our comfort zone, because it does become our comfort zone. How many men and women fear even getting into new relationships because they don't trust themselves? They don't trust the people that they choose. They don't want to get hurt again. All of that stuff. And I'm the type of person, I'm like, okay, so you fear getting hurt. I understand that, right? Because nobody wants to get hurt, but it's a part of life. And how much strength do you have if you've been hurt in a past relationship? You're still here. You're still here. You're now stronger, but you're not seeing yourself as being stronger because, again, your identity is saying, I'm not worthy. I don't trust myself. I've lost my identity because I've been in these situations. I've been in the cycles, the repeating patterns of abusive, addictive partners that don't treat me well.
So true.
Yeah. The other one that I love to highlight, it's like my favorite thing to highlight in relationships, especially when you're trying to create a relationship, is wanting Mr. Tall, Dark, and Handsome. And women, yes, I am talking to you. You want Prince Charming, Mr. We grew up with Disney. We grew up with Disney princesses who needed Disney princesses. You got Cinderella, who grew up feeling unworthy. She still loved herself because you could see that, but she felt unworthy and she ended up landing Prince Charming, who absolutely unconditionally loved her and fought for her, right? But at the same time, we were conditioned and taught to believe that we needed Mr. Tall, Dark, and Handsome. We needed a knight in shining armor. We needed to be saved and protected, and Snow White having to be, kissed to wake up. All of us had that tall, dark, and handsome. That is not a good ideal. It's not. Mr. Tall, Dark, and Handsome, I'm sorry. And I'm going to be blunt, and I'm sure you'll appreciate that, Laura, is Mr. Tall, Dark, and Handsome is going to be the abusive, conceited, egotistical asshole that's going to beat the shit out of you because that's he thinks he's the shit, right? And probably one of the first times I've completely sworn in one of our episodes, but that's the truth, right? We have these ideals. Can't be living at home, can't have kids, we build this list of things that we expect or we want from our ideal partner. That doesn't work, right? And then we get mad when we don't fit on their list because I love you, I'll treat you right, I'm loyal, all of this, but you're not focusing on that. You're focusing on tall, dark, and handsome, rich, doesn't live with mom and dad, doesn't have kids. I never thought I'd be with somebody who didn't have hair. And my husband has no hair. But on top of that, he has no chest hair, no back hair, TMI, but whatever. And I love it. I adore it. I grew up with my mom liked the hairy apes. Nothing against hairy men, nothing against them. Just not, it's not what I enjoy. But I met a man who didn't have hair and it was great. It was absolutely great.
Well, to go off of what you were just saying, I wholeheartedly believe in your unpopular opinion about Disney Prince Charming coming to rescue you, because it's just simply not true. And that is something where people are looking outside of themselves to fill that void. So whether it's in relationships, whether it's in food, whether it's in the nightclub, they're always looking for the next something that's going to make them feel better. And that's not where it comes from. So yeah, and that whole Prince Charming thing, sometimes it just doesn't look like the packaging that you wanted in the first place. And that's when you have to open your mind to like other options, because that one packaging that you thought of is not working. So maybe open and broaden your mind to other types of packaging. And you know what? half of the time you'll be more surprised, like in a good way, where you'll be like, wow, this is even better than I even would have imagined or would have thought. So when you ask for something of this or better, then you actually might get the whole package, and it's going to be amazing.
I'm going to share this, and I apologize, honey, if you catch this episode, but I grew up with Dirty Dancing. Okay, Dirty Dancing.
Me too.
Just Patrick Swayze in Dirty Dancing, right?
Yeah.
I never knew. I've been with my husband 15 years, right? I am still so wholly, physically, emotionally, mentally attracted to that man. He can't walk in the room without my mind going in the gutter, right? So whatever, but healthy. But so I'm looking at him one day, and so he's a manager. He's in a management position, so he wears black dress pants. And so he comes home one day, and I'm watching him, and I always tell him, you have to take the shirt off first. Just I don't care about the pants, just take the shirt off first, right? And he takes the shirt off, and I'm watching, and then all of a sudden, I watched Dirty Dancing last year. And I watched it again. I rewatched it for the millionth time. I watched Dirty Dancing last year. And in the scene where baby goes to his cabin, and he's got the dress pants on because they just came from the show. He's got the dress pants on, no shirt. That's my husband. So something I've loved for 30 something years, I got without even knowing that I was asking for it, right? Because I focused my relationship or my search for a relationship on my need to feel a certain way. He provides all of the, he fights with me when I need to fight, when I need to release energy and vent. He gives me that, right? We head to head, we go at it. And it's okay because we know how to communicate. So I feel loved, I feel safe, I feel supported, I feel acknowledged. I've got unconditional love, and I give unconditional love. I know his love language, so I understand that he's not going to, that's another one, we'll talk about love languages. I know that he's not maybe going to be as affectionate as I, or as physical as I crave, because that's my love language, is physical touch and affection. But his love language is gifts of service. So I never have to worry about my car breaking down. I never have to worry about doing my oil changes. I never have to worry about, my husband will help clean the house. He'll do laundry. He'll take care of the kids. Like, he'll do the gifts of service. And that's him constantly showing me his version of love. And we get that mixed up, right? Is you expect one thing, but don't realize that maybe they're giving you what you're asking for in their way.
Yeah. Well, and that's where it comes from with picking somebody that maybe is the opposite of you, because they say opposites attract. I think being opposite is perfectly fine, but when it comes down to like your morals and your values and your ethics, you need to be on the same page, because I'm the one who's more energetic and like bubbly and crazy, and he's more calm, reserved, collected, which works perfectly well together. But we have the same values when it comes to important things in our private life, politics, religion, any of that. We really get along on all of those levels. So we just agree on them.
Yeah. Which is, and you know what, and I agree with that. There is a benefit to having, not everything is agreed upon, right? Part of what we need to learn as a society, especially in relationships, whether that be friendships or your ideal partner, is that it's okay to have different beliefs, right? It's okay to love other people where they're at and not expect them to convert to your way of thinking or convert to your belief systems, whatever that may look like, right? I think people just forget that it is two individual people trying to share a relationship. And I think that's one of the biggest downfalls.
Yeah. I mean, and so, you touch light on
that. little bit of a time lag. For some reason, it's cutting out a little bit. So let's talk about damaging relationships. So I created a PDF a few years ago about your most damaging relationship issues, right? So what do you think are relationship killers?
Not being able to love yourself the way that, you wished that they would fulfill that void. And really what it is coming to strength of the self-respect, the self-worth, the self-love, all before you get yourself into a relationship. I was completely unaware of that growing up. That was not even something that came to my awareness, and it failed me every time. So yeah, I mean, really just being full and complete with or without.
Yeah. And that you are completely right. You have to, not have to, but you should have a good foundation of who you are, right? Who you are, what your values are, what your beliefs are, what makes you happy, what makes you unhappy, right? Like I was saying, I created this PDF and it was the 7 most damaging relationship issues, right? Or the 7 top ways you're ruining your relationships. And I think that communication is a huge one. So it was your listening skills, right? There are 3 ways to listen. The first being when you listen and you're not actually, when you sit down and somebody is listening to you and they're going, yeah, but they're not actually listening, like nothing's getting through. So that's the first way. The second way is listening, but in your head, all your reactions are coming in. What are you going to say next? What are you going to focus on next? What are you going to do? Right? You're not actually paying attention and listening. Excuse me. The third one is actually listening to the other person to hear what they're saying. And sometimes that's hearing what they're not saying, right? And truly trying to connect with the emotion behind what it is that they're expressing. So that for me is number 1.
An extension of the communication, I'm going to go as far to say that sometimes it's like 2 different languages. So what you may be trying to say, the other person can't retain because they're just not at that same level, that same frequency that you are at, and vice versa. So sometimes I feel like it's 2 separate languages happening and the other person cannot comprehend. It's almost unattainable.
Absolutely. I don't know how many couples I've worked with where they're saying the same thing, just in different ways. And it's the argument because they're like, I'm saying this. And it's like, no, I'm saying that, but they're saying exactly the same thing, just different ways, right? And that goes hand in hand with the love languages, right? And expectations. I had a story told to me about a couple who was going through a very hard time. And the wife was ready to just give up the whole relationship. She would make dinner every night. And every night she'd ask her husband to clean up the dishes. And he'd say, absolutely, but I'm going to do it in the morning. No fail, this husband would do it every morning. But the wife could not stand it that he didn't do it that night. That was offensive to her because she had taken all that time and all that effort to cook him a meal. She felt disrespected that he wouldn't do it that night. But he saw no problem with it because he was still doing it just during the day, right? So it's like that hand in hand. She's entitled to how she feels. She's entitled to her beliefs. But when you're emotionally triggered by that belief, right, and feeling disrespected, you're not going to see it from the other person's perspective and say, oh, like, I'm not intentionally trying to hurt your feelings. I didn't know it was that big of a deal. Let's talk about it, right? So open communication about your expectations is key. What were the other ones? Not making it all about yourself. That is a huge one. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm an Aries, and Aries tend to be a little self-centered if we want to go there. But I feel like I'm such a giver, and I used to be a people pleaser, and then that failed. So I found a perfect center medium of that spectrum of not just me, and not just give, deplete. So I think it's balance right in between the two, and just giving time for the other person, whether it's whatever their needs, their love language is, whatever, they want to talk about. And then also stating how you feel is important. It's like, it's a perfect dance, like in between the two.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. Balance, right? Balance in expression, communication, listening, needs, the way that you act, the way that you react. A big one in relationships is reaction versus response. Obviously, there's a huge difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is an emotional reaction, where responding is a logical, where you can actually think about things without getting into your own head and thinking, oh, they really hurt my feelings and they did that. And again, it comes back to that, victimization of when somebody does something or says something, and especially in a relationship, you're like, oh, you did not just do that. And
reaction and response is huge, and choosing to take that time after something happens that may trigger you, or a argument, or anything for that matter, taking that moment to regroup, get grounded, and collect your thoughts instead of barking away at the other person, because I found that does no good. So yes, I think it's huge. And sometimes you don't have to exchange any energy. Sometimes less is more. You may have all of these thoughts that you want to get off your chest, but it may not even be the right thing to do, because you might be exerting all of your energy, and then you're going to feel spent afterwards. So sometimes not reacting at all or responding at all is fine.
Yep. And that's part of holding yourself accountable, right? One of the things, and again, going back to the book I wrote, is one of the things that I learned in my past relationship was not to react. It was not to use vindictiveness, volatility, or even manipulation to try to get what I wanted, because maybe that wasn't right for the relationship, right? So I walked into my current relationship, my 15-year marriage, I walked into that and I said, when I'm feeling backed into a corner, when I'm feeling very reactive, very emotional, I need space. I need to put myself in a timeout where I can think and process and not say things or do things that are meant to hurt you, because that's the space that I go to. Mm-hmm. And so it's holding myself accountable and knowing what I need in that moment to keep me healthy and to keep my relationship healthy.
I love the word that you said, processing, because that's what I always use to say, I'm processing, like, give me the moment. And it's just the wheels are turning, and I'm just like absorbing and just taking that time for yourself. And like you said, accountability is huge.
Yeah. So going back to, creating space for your ideal partner, and you and I, and the books that we wrote, and the reason that we're here doing what we're here, what do you want to share? What do you think, what are your points that you think are really huge for creating your ideal partner?
One thing that comes to mind right away, and my book is a series of 7 steps, but one of the main ones that I just feel called to, which has helped me so much, is being who you truly are, being authentic, not changing, not dimming your light, not being a chameleon to satisfy somebody else, actually speaking your truth and feeling safe about it, because it is scary to speak your truth sometimes. That's why, there's secrets and, things like skeletons in closets. But I feel like anytime that I have stood my ground and been authentic, then guess what? The right people actually gravitate and stay, and the wrong ones filter out. So that is kind of like one of my biggest like secret sauce of the whole thing, is just be who you truly are, being genuine.
Yep. One of the things I want to, actually, a couple of the things I want to mention is specifically to professional women or empowered women. A lot of women nowadays who are empowered, who are professional, who are putting themselves out there in a stronger sense, almost feel like they have to settle. So settling is a huge one for me. You shouldn't have to settle in your ideal relationship. Settling is not an option. It's not something that you sit there and go, I'm too strong for this person, or I intimidate this person. Your ideal partner is not going to be intimidated by you. My husband has seen me go from stay-at-home mom to starting 6 businesses on my own for the majority. And he supported me through all of it. He didn't doubt my capabilities. He encouraged, he financed, he did a lot of stuff in the back end to help me grow to where I am today. And you need somebody to be able to do that, right? Even if they don't, like I'm a spiritual teacher on top of, that's one of my businesses. And even though he didn't understand it or agree with it or even believe in it at the beginning, he was still supportive. He still had that capability. And that's something that I needed, was somebody behind me, no matter what, no matter whether they agreed or disagreed, it was somebody who had my back.
Oh gosh, that's so important. And I feel like I finally have that in my life now. And in the past, I never did. And it always found a way to fail on me. And not that I needed the support, but I was okay without. I was going to be fine without any relationship, because once again, I wasn't going to settle either. I wasn't going to just be okay with mediocre. I guess this will do for now. I was perfectly fine being independent without, and knowing that I would be just fine for the rest of my life if that's the way, it had been.
Yep. So I noticed a few years ago, a lot of women who now, and again, this goes for men and women, right? If you choose to remain single, you choose to remain single. If you choose to look for love or create space for love, absolutely. You should be empowered to create your choices. But I did notice a few women who were saying, I'm happy by myself. I'm happy by myself. I'm not looking. But in reality, they were actually scared. They were scared of giving away their power. They were afraid of being hurt again. They had all of this fear surrounding getting into another relationship or dating, or again, settling, or, feeling like the day I met my husband in person, because we were set up over the phone first through a mutual friend. When we met the first day, I looked at him. I got in the car. I turned, I looked at him, and I'm like, this isn't going to work. And that was my first instinct. And the reason is because that man was hot as hell. And I'm sitting there going, like, I had my own insecurities, right? So I'm like, oh, he's good looking. He's too good looking. He's probably going to be sure of himself and cocky and all this other stuff. We ended up going on our date that night, and that spiraled out of control, right? Because I realized that he was sweet and kind and strong and powerful, and he was a family man, and he talked about his son and his mother and all of this stuff. And it just endeared me to him, because underneath the physical appearance, he was everything that I was looking for. But I was happy on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And again, my internet decided to go.
Mercury
and I reset it today too. It's like the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, always. Yes.
So what else do you think that you want to share on ideal partners?
Well, one thing that is another little secret that I'll share, and it was one of the best things that I ever did, was I wrote down a list of 52 things, qualities, characteristics, traits that I wanted in a partner. And I wrote specifics. Like I literally went down to the T of exactly what I wanted. And then I sealed it in an envelope and I labeled it and I said a prayer and I just let it go. And it took 2+ years from when I wrote that list to when I actually met him. So yeah, I had to just surrender and let go to the idea. I couldn't hang on to it. Like, when is he going to show up? When is he going to come? I continued to date. I continued with my life. And every single one of those 52 items, he has those characteristics.
And that's, you know what, that's lucky. I'm not going to say lucky, but that for a lot of women, that is rare, right? Because I personally am against the list for the most part, right? Yeah. I'm for the most part, I'm against the list because we're putting that pressure on that other person, right? Where a lot of what we need to feel needs to first come from us, right? So you allowed yourself to be yourself. And then, you know, going from that, it's again, the safety, the support, the honesty, and the trust. I have no concern that my husband's going to go out and cheat on me. I have no concern that he's going to hit me because I'm strong enough, not that I'm strong enough. And that sounds shameful. So I apologize for the wording on that. It's not that I'm strong enough. He wouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. Right. And I created space for that he wouldn't do that. That was never something that I wanted. And I know most of us say that, and women who become, you know, victims to domestic violence, they have said that. And it is traumatizing to get into those relationships. I again wanted to point it out, that fear. Sorry, I'm segueing. Again, I wanted to point out that fear, though, is that just because you experienced one relationship or multiple relationships that went a certain way doesn't mean that you can't survive another one. Doesn't mean that you can't create space for a love that's true, that isn't going to be abusive, isn't going to be draining and exhausting and take over, where you have to settle and give up your sense of identity.
Well, every day is a new day, and guess what? You get to make a new choice. So we have all of this belief systems of, you know, how I grew up, what I went through teenage years. If I, you know, was married to this type of person, that's going to be the habit. So that goes back to your habits, what we're so used to, but we can create a new life. And that's one thing. When I wake up in the morning, I'm like, ooh, today's a new day. I can start, you know, X, Y, and Z and create it.
I do that Mondays. Everybody hates Mondays, right? Not everybody, but so many people don't like Mondays, right? And I'm like, why not? It's a new week, a new energy, a new day. You get to make those choices on how your day is going to go, right? And your week and your month. You could say, oh, you know, I'm not looking forward to Monday because I'm having a busy week. But you never know what's going to happen during that week. Mm-hmm. That's like any relationship. You can say, I'm terrified of getting into another relationship. My husband, I've actually known a couple relationships where one of the partners or both of the partners were terrified of the relationship because they knew that the energy, the instant connection, the love, it was so strong that person had the ability to shatter you, right? And that's how my husband felt with me. And I felt with him. It had that ability to shatter, and it was terrifying, but we did it anyway.
Well, I'm a risk taker, so I'm a big fan of that. That's what I like to share and motivate people to. If you never try anything, how are you going to do anything different?
Yeah.
Very simple.
Yeah. And if it's not, yeah, exactly. Right. If you keep trying to get if you keep trying to get a different outcome with the same pattern, you're not going to succeed. Exactly. You have to learn how to do it differently. You have to learn to find the lessons, right? All of those failed relationships or mistakes or whatever you want to call them, right? Because I don't believe in any of those. All of those are stepping stones, things that you need to learn in order to grow. And that's exactly right. That's what I highlighted in my book. That's what I highlight in my program, or my course, I should say, is your past relationships are stepping stones to creating space for your ideal partner.
Always a learning lesson, always, and always gaining wisdom. I don't believe in coincidences or accidents either. Everything has a lesson behind it. And when you take a step back and actually look at what the lesson is trying to teach you and put it, another notch in your belt, otherwise you're going to still attract the same type of lesson. Otherwise, you're still going to follow that same pattern and get those same results if you haven't learned it yet. So they come in different forms of different relationships, different people that come your way. If you don't learn it, then of course it's going to still present itself.
Yeah, exactly. That's where you get the repeat patterns, the cycles where you're like, oh my goodness, not again. And that's where the self-doubt comes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many people who create relationships based on their religion, based on their family experiences. I detail that out in the book again, where, my greatest fear is losing my husband. And I saw my mother, my aunt, my grandmother all lose their husbands. Just half the females that I grew up with had lost their husbands. And so I grew up with most of my family outlives their husbands. And it's like, crap, I don't want to outlive him, right? Where it's this whole process. Religious beliefs. Some people will pass up somebody who is amazing for them because they're not the same religion.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's why I'm so against those lists, because sometimes you're going to miss out, and they'll always come back. Sometimes you're going to miss out on somebody who is amazing, but that just means you're not ready for them at that time. My husband and I almost met. I detailed in the book 6 times at least where my husband and I were in the same place at the same time from grade 6 up.
We have the same story. It's true, but the timing wasn't right, and I go ahead. I fully believe that.
Yeah, you have to go through those scenarios, right? If we had met in grade 6, we wouldn't have learned the lessons we learned. If we had met, any time between then and now, it wouldn't have worked, because I wouldn't have been ready. He wouldn't have been ready. We wouldn't have created, the mentalities or the personalities that we needed to be partners. And we would have just kept crossing paths. Of course, my partner too is also my twin flame. So for anybody who's non-spiritual, he is my soul's connection. We've had multiple lifetimes together. We have, circled the globe many times as partners. I remember a past life, and I apologize for anybody who's not spiritual, but I'm spiritual. I have a past life with him where he was married to my sister and we were having an affair. So, we're always destined to meet one way or another those specific people, right? There's soulmates, there's twin flames, there's, if you all those spiritual connections, right? Where you just know that you've known that person before.
Mm-hmm. And there's also karmic partners.
Mm-hmm. Those are the fun ones.
Yeah.
Those are the.
And then going back to the list, had I written down this list 20 years ago, it would have looked much different. And I may, have attracted somebody completely away from the list that I had created now.
Yeah. So tall, dark, and handsome Prince Charming
may have been on my old list.
Yeah. And we do that. How many of us, male or female, how many of us pictured our wedding, pictured our family life, right? There are people that I know who pictured their perfect family with their perfect children and their perfect, and then they get to a point where they have, you know, family and children, and then it's not perfect, and it's they become disillusioned and disinterested and unhappy with that family because it's not their perfect idea. It's not what they pictured in their head. And then it causes a lot of unhappiness, a lot of strife. But again, that comes down to you internally, you individually, right? What do I believe I deserve? What do I believe I want to create? Can I be grateful and happy for what I have, right? You can have a loving partner, loving children, an amazing life, and still not like it because it's not your perfect idea of what you want. On the flip side, you could have all that and still not like it because it really just doesn't align to you anymore. So kind of goes both ways.
It sure does. Yeah. And it's outgrowing, it's evolution. Like, you know, we're always changing and shifting. And I feel like finding a partner that is wanting to grow as well. They don't always have to agree on the same things, but coming full circle, just being in alignment with growing and evolving and always craving knowledge. Like, I'm big on the emotional intelligence thing, which I feel is so underrated, but it's coming out more and more that is huge.
Yeah.
Just being aware of yourself, being aware of your own spirit, why we came here, our purpose.
Yeah.
And
emotional intelligence is huge. And that comes again down to the reaction versus response, right? Just because we react thinking our belief might be saying somebody is intentionally hurting us, we don't know that, right? If somebody turns to you and calls you a name, but it's an endearing name to them, but to you, you're like, no, like, I don't like that. But to me, my husband can call me any curse word under the sun. And I'm just like, okay, sure, whatever. It doesn't bother me, right? But if he said it in anger, then it would bother me.
intention,
right? It's the intention behind it. But we can't assume what that other person's intention is. He can look at me and I can be there and I'm just like, did you really? Right? And I'm ready to react, right? And I'm like, did you seriously just do that? And full stop. Like, did you just do that? And he's like, can't you see I'm laughing? And I'm like, okay. Okay, right? So sometimes that, again, comes hand in hand to the communication. You have to be able to communicate that are you intending to hurt me? Or like, are you intentionally doing that? Or are you not? Because I'm reacting to that and I need you to know that I'm reacting to that. If it's something that you're going to react to consistently, then you say, you know what, I really don't like it when you do that. Can you please not do that? And explain how that makes you feel. And your partner should respect that.
And it's also difficult when you find a partner that you're just continually trying to like put in so much effort and trying to communicate. And it's like, you know, hitting two heads against each other. Like sometimes things are not a match. Sometimes it's easier to just be friends. I've had that happen in previous relationships too, where there was no crazy explosive ending, but it just needed to end because we weren't on the same page. You know, it was black and white. It was round, you know, round hole square peg. It just was not making any sense. But friendship would have been fine.
Yeah. And you're right. Sometimes those are just the end of the relationship because the lesson's been learned. Right. And again, it comes back to lessons of, you know, is this what I want? Does it fit? Are we compatible? And then it's like, okay, well, maybe not. Not every relationship has to end badly either.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And a lot of people think that I'm going to get hurt again, or, you know, this person's going to hurt me, or I'm going to hurt them. And it's like, but what if you don't? Mm-hmm. What if you just wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm just really not all that happy in this relationship. and the other person's like, me too. right? That does happen.
Okay. Perfectly okay.
Yeah.
And we're so
All
worried
right.
about what other people think, but sometimes that goes back to being your authentic self. When you're speaking your truth, then how could you be mad at that?
One of the things that I said in a relationship, and it was one of the most powerful things I'd ever said, is I can't expect you to change. I can't expect anybody to change. But the other person also can't expect me to change or me to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You need to understand that you can't expect anyone to change for you, and nobody can expect anyone to change for them. But you can't expect that person to stay if it's not working for them. First and foremost, in any relationship you are in, you have to put yourself first.
Absolutely.
And if that's with a relationship not working, then that's what it is. You let go with love.
And I understand having the determination in, let's say, a marriage or some commitment that you just feel like I'm going to make this work no matter what. Sometimes it's okay to grow apart. And I know that's another unpopular opinion that I have, but I am holding to my guns to that, because I see some people going to the grave miserable in their relationships. And I'm like, man, not only did you go, die unhappy, but you did a disservice to somebody else who you could have been happy with. Mm-hmm. There's always a match for everybody out there. And that goes back to settling too. Like, why settle and just be okay with what you have just because of your determination to make it work? Well, maybe you tried everything under the sun and it just didn't.
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe you do want to be alone. Right? We did an episode called Love Your Way, where the couple was a partnering, where they were married but lived apart, and that worked for them. Mm-hmm. Relationships can be in many different forms. They don't have to be one way or another. You can live in separate houses. You can choose not to have children. You can, choose to live in different countries, or, long distance relationships. Every relationship is going to have its own dynamic. You have to just control your own narrative.
Mm-hmm. Stay in your lane.
Accountability.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything you'd like to add before we go?
Honestly, like I'm just the biggest cheerleader and advocate for encouraging anyone, because I know that I want to be the voice that I needed when I was going through my own personal relationship struggles. And now we have knowledge at our fingertips, internet, and I just feel like using that to our advantage. And I want to give people like hope and inspiration, and just feel like that they can get past that block, whatever it is that they're going through in their relationship, to give them that extra push to try something different. It's about like feeling the scary stuff and digging deep, but also loving yourself and having radical self-love and self-worth and moving forward.
Absolutely. And anybody watching, you can check out Laura's book. The link is in the description for Laura's book, Radical Self-Love. I would like to say thank you to everybody watching. My own company is sponsoring this episode. We are offering my book on my story. It's called On My Way to Us, which is detailing my past relationships, my journey to my twin flame, as well as the things that I took from my past relationships that I needed to learn to be a better partner and to create space for love. And talking about creating space for love, I am launching a course that officially airs June 1st, 2022. So if you're watching this later, then it's already launched. You can catch it through the description in the links. But creating space for love is really for men and women who want to create space in their life for their ideal partner, for a love that provides them the things they need without fear, with confidence, and with the ability to say no. So that is what we're doing with creating space for love. You can check that out. I also have a discount code in there. If you use your ideal partner, you get off 62% of the purchase price. So go and check that out. Link in the description, Creating Space for Love. If you want to just grab the book, again, your ideal partner, you can get it for 62% off. So go and take a look at those. Let me know what you think. And yeah, if you want to reach out to either myself or Laura, you can do so. Our links are in the description to follow us on social media. Check out our websites, everything along those lines. And Laura, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, Just a Family, I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Please go like, follow, and share the show on whatever social media platforms you are engaged on. You can join our mailing list at justalivetv.com. If you would like to be a guest of the show, a blog writer, or a sponsor, please reach out at justalivetv.com, or you can find us on our multitude of social media platforms. I wish you all a wonderful day, and I will talk to you on the next episode. Bye.